Welcome to the start of a brand new series where we rank every single roller coaster in different parks around the world. And no, your ears do not deceive you. This is not Taylor speaking. Finally, I have found a little spot of my own. And to kick things off, we're going to be ranking the coasters at one of my favorite parks in the United States, Knott's Berry Farm. Now, up until recently, this would be regarded as one of the premier Cedar Fair parks, but I suppose now it is one of the premier Six Flags parks, which just feels utterly wrong. But alas, here we are. This park has 9 operating roller coasters and 1 SB&O coaster that I'm gonna mention right off the bat. That would be Montezuma's Revenge. I actually never got to ride it. By the time I made my first visit to the park, it was already closed down. Supposedly, it's getting a whole redo as we speak, but it really hasn't been addressed by the park in quite some time. It's a Schwarzkopf shuttle loop, opened in 1978 and closed down in 2022. In theory, when it reopens, it will be Montezuma's The Forbidden Fortress, but I'll believe it when I see it. Coming in at number 9, we have Coast Rider, not to be confused with Ghost Rider. This is a Mock Rides Wild Mouse, and it's one of probably the worst ones out there. I'd honestly be just fine if Knott's decided to replace this with like a wild moose or something like that, because truly I think that this park deserves a lot prettier and better rides than Coast Rider. However, it's only a little over 10 years old, so I'd be surprised if it went anywhere anytime soon. But I think it's quite clearly the weak link at the park. At number 8, I hope someone can explain this name to me. Snoopy's Tender Paw Twister Coaster. First of all, I'm not so sure that I know what a tender paw is, but I like Snoopy, and I don't really have any problem with Zamperla family coasters. They're cute, they're fun, they get the job done. This is actually Knott's Berry Farm's newest coaster. It opened in June of 2024, and it's actually a clone of Daddy Pig's roller coaster at the Peppa Pig theme park. For number 7, we have a Zamperla motor coaster, Pony Express. I actually think this ride is pretty darn fun. I generally just love the concept of riding in like a horseback riding or a bike riding position. Any of those kinds of coasters, I really do enjoy them. Generally speaking, I do tend to prefer the same kind of style of coaster done by Vekoma. For example, Boost Your Bike at Toverland or Velocity at Flamingoland. But these are still really good and fun rides. I do wish it was a bit longer though. At number 6, we have Jaguar with an exclamation point. I'm well aware that this is just a Zero Tivoli, but I really like the theming elements. And to be quite honest with you, I actually really like the Tivoli model. But this thing is huge and sprawling, and I really enjoy it. Perhaps it's a hot take having it above Pony Express, but I stand by what I said. I think this is a really fun ride. I think I tend to overall gravitate towards slightly longer experiences because the thrill level is not super far off from one another, and Tivolis are kind of like a scenic tour depending on how they're set up, and I think that exactly describes how Jaguar is. At number 5, we have a Mock Ride spinning coaster in Sierra Sidewinder. Despite not being an extreme spinner, I really love this ride, especially when you get a cycle where you are just spinning out of control, particularly when you have the weight off balanced a little bit. I've actually done all 3 clones of Sierra Sidewinder. The other 2 are Spider-Man Doc Ock's Revenge at IMG Worlds of Adventure and Storm Chaser at Paulton's Park, and I loved both of those as well. I think it's a totally fantastic family coaster. The spinning does get pretty outrageous though, so I don't know how much really young kids like it. But after this, we're going to be getting into the thrill coasters, so that would mean that Sierra Sidewinder to me is the best family coaster at the park. So now we'll get into the stuff that everybody really cares about. The 4 thrill coasters at the park. Now I won't lie, it took more than one trip to Knott's Berry Farm to be able to check all 4 of these off. But the wait was absolutely worth it because all 4 of these coasters are fantastic. So for the number 4 spot, I'm going to give it to Hang Time, which is a Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster. This one was a little tricky to choose between the 3 or the 4 spot for it. This is probably like top 3 in the park.
You think top 3?
Top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I have to think about it.
For sure.
So I thought about it and settled on this. I'm sometimes not a huge fan of the thrill coasters made by Gerstlauer, but I think this has a fantastic layout and it's smooth, it's comfortable, it has lap bars, which makes all the difference when you're talking about a Gerstlauer coaster. It has a height of 150 feet, straight up a vertical lift hill and down a 96-degree beyond vertical drop. Top speed 57 miles an hour, 5 inversions, and a little over 2,000 feet in length. One thing I really like about it is the dive coaster element of the ride. When you get to the very top of the vertical lift hill, you do hang over the edge for a couple of seconds, which is really, really fun. And it makes the drop very sudden and intense. And another thing I really love about this ride is that it is almost just as much fun to watch as it is to ride. There's something very satisfying about the way that infinity coaster elements flow into one another, and I find that to be just as enjoyable to watch. And particularly at night with this ride, it has a KCL light package, which is absolutely stunning, and I wish more coasters had them, honestly. But yeah, this coaster makes me question my negative feelings towards Gerstlauer coasters, because then I ride something like this that is perfectly smooth and comfortable, and I'm like, dang, why can't they all be like that? So hang time, great ride, it's fantastic. At the number 3 spot, we have Silver Bullet, the B&M Invert. So this is what we would classify as your front gate coaster. Right as you enter Knott's Berry Farm, you can see the Cobra roll right over top of you. It's a really, really cool aesthetic. However, I will say right off the bat, I do not like the color scheme of this ride. I know I would like it at another park, or even another part of Knott's Berry Farm, but just not the first impression. I don't think it really matches the vibe of Knott's Berry Farm, but the way it sprawls around that entire area and goes over the water and everything, it's really, really nice. I just want it repainted. Now for the coaster itself, the way it actually rides, it's a really, really good roller coaster. I find it to be one of the more unique layouts on a B&M invert. One of my biggest criticisms of the invert model is that a lot of them are very predictable. And while this ride does have some of the marquee elements, to me it does feel distinct from the others. It's 146 feet tall, drop is 109 feet, top speed is 55 miles per hour, 6 inversions, and a length of a little over 3,000 feet. I think my favorite moment on the ride is the helix over the water. A lot of the time I feel like a helix can be a cop-out move and it doesn't really add much to the ride, but in this case it's really powerful and I gray out every single time. As far as inverts go, I wouldn't say it's in the tier of the best, but I would put it at above average. At the number 2 spot, we have what was for a long time my white whale, and that would be Accelerator. It is a highly, highly temperamental, intimate accelerator coaster. That being said, I don't even care that I had to wait for it for a long time and that it is down often, because it is one of the few hydraulic launch coasters that are left in the world, and I'd rather have it be finicky than gone. Accelerator is 205 feet tall, reaches a top speed of 82 miles per hour in 2.3 seconds, which is a very powerful launch. And what I really like about this ride compared to other intimate accelerator coasters is that it has a layout afterward. Now, I'm not gonna pretend it's the most exciting layout in the world, and the real star of the show is the launch, but I appreciate that it exists. I do worry about this ride though, given the fact that a lot of these parks in the new Six Flags chain are closing down the more problematic rides. We've already seen the conversion of Top Thrill Dragster into Top Thrill 2. We saw the very unfortunate demise of King Ka, and I know that this ride is expensive for them to operate and definitely a handful maintenance-wise, but it would be an absolute tragedy to see this thing go, especially because they just gave it a brand new beautiful paint job in the last few years. It looks fantastic. I already really loved Knott's Berry Farm from my first visits without having ridden this, but once I actually did, it took the park to an entirely new level for me. It's one of my favorite coasters in the state of California, quite honestly, and I really hope that the chain continues to value it as much as the fans do. It is over 20 years old though. King Ka only made it 20, so I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little nervous. But only time will tell, I suppose. But let's talk about the number 1 on the list. I feel like this is probably not a huge surprise. I've reiterated multiple times that the number 1 spot here at Knott's Berry Farm is my favorite roller coaster in the entire state of California. Best coaster in California.
I don't know about that. I like X too.
So that means I prefer it over everything at Magic Mountain as well. And that would be Ghost Rider. This is a CCI layout with a GCI touch, and it is a match made in heaven. It has a perfect, and I mean perfect, blend of forces. Fantastic laterals, tons of amazing airtime, namely the drop off of the mid-course, which is one of my favorite airtime moments on any roller coaster. It is smooth while still maintaining that out-of-control wood coaster feeling. Truly a perfect wood coaster to me. It is by far the longest roller coaster in the park, over 4,500 feet of track, 118 feet tall, top speed 56 miles per hour, and according to RCDB, 14 different points of airtime. Heck yeah. Now, I was not one of the people that got to ride it before the GCI retrack. I heard it was unbearable back then. And for people who have not gotten back out there to ride it now, I am so sorry. You probably think I'm crazy right now. But I will say that my drive to go to this park, to ride this ride, is not super high. Let me explain. Ghost Rider has some of the slowest operations out there. Like, I would expect a 2-hour line for something at Disney or Universal, but at Knott's Berry Farm, that's kind of crazy. Unless I bought a skip the line that day, I'm probably only going to ride it once. And even with the skip the line, I've still waited 45 plus minutes for it.
Yeah, we got in line at 7:30 and it is 8:18.
All right, yeah,
So
park
go
is now
figure. And we have
officially
fast lane.
closed.
So that drives me nuts because it's such a fantastic ride and you just want to marathon it, which you can't do with every wood coaster. You know, sometimes wood coasters have too much of a bite where you ride it once or twice and you need a break. For this one, I feel like I could just keep cycling through it and I would be just fine. And that's coming from someone who is a little more on the sensitive side with roughness. I mean, come on, look how happy we are. It would be awesome if someday this ride could operate a bit more efficiently, but we shall see. Regardless, this is a fantastic headliner at a fantastic park. That being said, I would love to see another high thrill coaster at this park. I know generally speaking, the market is headed more towards the family-oriented rides, so I don't know if it's super likely in the near future. Assuming they're still working on Montezuma's Revenge, that will likely be their focus in the thrill department for a while. But I know I would love to see a high thrill multi-launch coaster in this park. Right now, out of the 4 high thrill coasters, the only one that has a launch is Accelerator. And don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic launch. But an LSM multi-launch coaster would be distinctly different. I know personally, I really love what Vekoma is doing with rides like Taquani Beast. If we could get something like that at Knott's Berry Farm, that would be so awesome. And I know the company as a whole is really liking working with Vekoma right now, so I'm not counting a high thrill Vekoma coaster out of the question. And then, of course, there's all of the Giga coaster lore, which is an entirely different story, but admittedly would be awesome. I guess we'll have to wait and see. So there you have it, guys. Every coaster at Knott's Berry Farm indisputably ranked. No, I'm just kidding. Please dispute me in the comments. Do you like my list? Do you think that I'm crazy? And when I ask that, I mean specifically about this list, nothing else, please. I look forward to doing more of these in the future, so please let me know what other parks you want to hear. I will consider them. Thank you guys so much for listening and hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.